Hey everybody, how are we this evening? Sorry I've not been here for a while. I've had quite a bit going on. I'm busy with clients. How are we all tonight? So I thought I'd jump on and get back to doing my streams. They were quite popular. So just been working on a video for the course, just updating a video. And for those who are watching this for the first time, you can watch my whole course on Mindset for Mixing and Production. It's meant for people who are self-taught, who just missing the fundamentals, which is 90% of the people I've worked with Fader Pro and my own clients as well. And it's meant to go alongside my one-to-one mentorship, but the video's there for free. So I was just updating a video on stereo width, and I thought that I'd just jump on here and just do it and talk about it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is like mid-side processing. And a common misconception I see with people that come with me, and that I had at the beginning, to be quite honest with you, and that is that a lot of people seem to think that there is the mono signal, the mids, and then there is the sides, so the left signal and the right signal. And people seem to think that they're three separate signals, but it's not true. That we have the mid, which is the left signal, and the right signal, okay, and that is the sum of the left and the right signal is the mids, okay. The sides is the difference between those two signals, and that's it. So if you have two signals that are exactly the same, there's going to be no stereo field. And I'm going to show you what I mean now with an example. So a lot of the time you've got different signals or different stereo signals that come through, and sometimes those signals have more stereo information, and sometimes they don't have a lot. Sometimes they sound quite mono, and I'm going to go into this tonight. And yeah, let's have a look at this. So I'm working in Ableton, and I've got a sine wave here, okay. Let's have a listen to that. Okay, and it's in mono. And then I'm going to duplicate the same signal. Let's listen. It's just louder, as we would expect. So now, if we've got two signals that are the same and they're both in mono and both down the same, what most people would think is if we pan one left and we pan one right, we're going to get a stereo image. So let's have a listen to that. So I'm going to pan this one to the left and this one to the right. Okay, now let's have a listen. Now that's weird, isn't it? Because it's still in the center. And why is that? That's because they're both exactly the same signal, exactly the same. And what that means is there is no side information, because the sides are the difference between the left signal and the right signal, and there is no difference there. So if they're exactly the same and what I'm saying is true, let's try and change one of the signals. Okay, so let's try and mess around with a phase. So let's have a listen to this. Let's try and add some saturation on the right side. So now it started sounding wider. I can hear it more on the right hand side. Let's do that on the left hand side. So now I've got stereo, but it's still the same signals. All I've done is changed them. So it's the difference on the left is the EQ, which made it come through on the right. Sorry, made it come through more on the right. And I changed it on the left, and that information changed on the left. And now it sounds wider. So why does this matter? It matters because every signal is different. For example, this signal I've got here. This is a lead sound from a track I'm just working on at the moment. And if we're thinking about mid sides, sometimes some sounds don't have a lot of stereo information, even though they're a stereo file. And when we're making things wide, sometimes we make things wide by using that side information. Sometimes we can make things wider by using delays and making it perceived to be wider, and reverbs. And sometimes there's plugins that take the mono signal and psychoacoustically create the sense that a sound is wide. So let's have a listen to this sound here. I love this sound. It's on my new track. Let's have a listen to that. It sounds a bit phasey, so let's have a listen to it again. Okay, but let's listen to it normal. It's a stereo file, so let's listen to the mono signal. Sounds good. Let's listen to the sides. Now they sound bad, and there's not a lot in there, and they sound phasey, okay? But if you listen again, where are the sides? They're in the center. They're not on the sides. And why is that? Because that's the psychoacoustic tricks that are created with mid and sides. That is the difference between the left signal and the right signal. But it's in the center. But when you play it with the mid, the whole sound, it sounds wider. So why might that be important to us with mid-side treatments? Well, the reason for that is a lot of people will go to a sound and they'll boost the sides. Okay, but let's have a listen to the sides on this one. We don't like the sides on it. So that's not what we want to do. And actually, I'm going to keep this sound in mono because it sounds better, because I don't want that phasey part of it. So when I get a sound in, I listen in mono and I listen to the side information to decide, you know, or to listen to what I've got to work on if I want to make that sound wider in the mix. And I'll always do this at the end of the track when I've got everything in, so I can make a good decision about the position of the mix, where I want everything and how it's interacting with everything else in the mix. So what can I do to make this wide now? Well, I've made a decision to keep it mono. So the first thing I would do is this. I would go, right, I've got this sound, I'm definitely going to have a reverb on it. Let's put a reverb on. So I've got the mono sound, and what I've got here is I've got the hybrid reverb, which is the Ableton stock reverb. I've got it on full width, but it's in parallel because it's on dry wet. So I've EQ'd the sound so that what I'm hearing in the what's triggering the reverb, which hopefully is going to hit the sides, is the key information. So let's have a listen to that. And that sounds quite good. It sounds quite wide. I really like it. So what else would I do with that sound? Okay, well, I would try the Haas effect, which is a delay. Okay, and what you do is you get a delay and you take off the sync, bring the feedback down, and I put the dry wet up to 100%. And I'll move one of the sides and listen to it. But what I want you to concentrate on is what it's doing to the center signal and how it's affecting the center. Oh, let me take ping pong off. And that's made it sound wider. And I really like that. That sounds really good. But I'm also going to have the reverb on, so let's listen to that with the reverb. Let's turn it off. Now you can see it's not affecting the mid signal, and the reason for that is because we've got the whole thing working in parallel. Now what I'll do is I'll do the same thing. I'll bring in a delay, turn that off, and unsync it, turn it down. Now I want you to listen to the mid signal. Where's the signal in the middle? It's moved. It's moved over to that side. And just find what sounds best. So that sounds, it does sound wide, but now I've lost the information in the center. Okay, And that's where the punch of the track, that's in a club, that's where it hits. So I don't want to lose that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it in parallel. So I create a chain, I EQ it, and I find the signal, the frequencies that I really like that are making it sound wider. I EQ it, and then I make it wide. And obviously it doesn't sound as wide, but I'm preserving the signal in the center of the track. And then I'd reverb. And now a mono signal sounds really wide. Again, this sound doesn't have a lot of side information, so we're creating something from new. Something like a piano that might have a lot of side information, you know, might sound different. You know, you probably wouldn't use this. So whilst we're on time-based effects, just go to Echo Boy. So again, I'm quite sure you all know this. I can put on a ping pong delay and it'll automatically make it sound wider. And again, we're not affecting the center signal. Now, the key thing here is this, is that the more sides you have, the more you're smearing the center signal. And you've always got to be mindful of this. I'll do all this once I've got everything in the track to make sure that the stereo imaging process that I use works with everything else, because they all sound slightly different. Okay. So that was the Hass effect. Okay, what have we got next? Okay, this is the other thing, is you've got a lot of people I see do this, and I don't really like this. So what they do is they have the same signal and they'll duplicate it, and the pan one left and pan one right. Okay, and you're just asking for problems when it comes to phase with this. So I've got this signal, it's exactly the same one. I've put the utility on, made it mono, I panned one left and I panned one right. Let's have a listen to that. Let's take the reverb off. Still sounds quite mono. Let's compare that to the actual mono signal. But actually, we've lost the center of it. Okay? We've lost the center of the sound. But again, we've got the same signal. So what I might want to do on this again is change the signal to see if it makes a difference. So I've got one, boosted that one there. Let's get the other signal, let's boost it somewhere else. Let's turn that one on the left and right. So they sound even more different. So the difference. Now, I think it sounds all right. It sounds a bit phasey. Let's have a listen to it. Let's have a look at it. I don't like what it's doing to the center. I don't like all that. Yeah, it's not great. And we've kind of lost the center part of it. So let's have a listen to the Hass again. So yeah, I've got a really strong lead sound in the middle, and I've got the width, which I really like because it's in parallel. So, like back in the day, every now and then, what I would do is if I was recording like an 8-bar guitar, I'd get that was exactly the same all the way through, or a 4-bar guitar, I would get 2 bars, the first 2 bars, pan them left, and the second 2 bars, and pan them right. And that would kind of work a lot of the time, but you've just got to watch out for phasing when it comes to all this. So yeah, that's panning it left and right, and I keep seeing people doing it. So again, you can hear we're losing the actual sound. So right, and then we've got sends. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put these on a send. I've got this sound here. Let's put it in mono. And I'm going to send it to an ozone. So the reason why I do this is this. So imagine you've got your lead sound there, okay? And I want it to be there. I want it to be in my face all the time. And imagine that's like the mid signal, and you stereo spread it. So you've got that there right in your face. And what I want to do is bring back the stereo side of it and manipulate it and EQ it how I want, but keep that lead sound in my face all the time. So if I put it on parallel, I can do that. And the other thing is if I put something on the mix, on the sound, a lot of the time, because the stereo signal is so wide, it smears the transients and the attack and the punch of the sound that it's on. So let's have a listen to that. Let's send this to an ozone first of all. Let's see how that sounds. Okay, that's not doing much. Let's try space control. Now this plugin is going red, so which means it's phasing. Now, I can use my ears and go, am I okay with that phasing? Because when it is phasing, it's got more width, but is it affecting the mid signal because it's in parallel? I don't hear it as much. But I do a little bit, to be honest with you. So I've got that, and then I've got stage 1. Stage 1, space control, ozone. Again, they're working off a mono signal, so it's not sounding amazing, but let's add the reverb as well and see what that does. Turn the ozone off. It is making it sound a bit, it is hiding the mixed signal, but it is sounding wider than just a reverb. Let's just space control. That sounds better. Let's try stage 1. Now I use all these 3 plugins all the time. Sorry, I didn't take this off, right? So I had Ozone on 1, okay. I had Leapwing, stage 1, and I had Space Control by Acoustica. Now, they all sound different, and how they create the stereo signal. Oh, sorry, the volume's too low, is it? Sorry about that. So, how they create the signal is different with each one. And what I'm trying to do is, what I do is I do this in the mix and see which of those, that side processing that is added sounds best in the mix. And there's no particular one at any particular time. They all sound different, but obviously some things work on the side information. So if you've got no sound information, it's not going to work as well. Some things work like on the Hass effect. Some things work by taking the mid information and psychoacoustically making it sound wider, which I'm assuming is just like adding information to one of the sides so it sounds different, making it sound wide, which is what we said before. Hey Etan, thanks very much. Hey Joris, how are you? Thanks for joining us. Feel free to ask any questions about this. So let's just mute that. Let's take the send off. Okay. And now let's just listen to the plugins on them direct. Let's see what happens. Okay. So this is stage 1. Now let's listen to the side information. Let's see what that's doing. That's in mono. Let's listen to the sides. That's what it's adding. Okay, you can hear the tone of it. Now let's listen to it again. Okay, great. That sounds quite nice. Sounds quite wide. But it's taking a bit of body out of that mid sign, that mid signal, and it will be creating a bit of phasing, and that's why I prefer it. I mean, it doesn't sound as wide on a send, but that's okay because we can just turn the send up. Okay. Then let's look at Space Control, which is by Acoustica. And the good thing about this is we can limit the phase, but when you do limit the phase, the more you do it, the more it brings in the stereo field, which kind of counteracts it a little bit. But let's have a listen to this on the plugin direct. So if you see this going red, it means it's phasing, and then you bring the limiter down and it works on it. Turn it off. So this kind of is parallel because it's a dry wet, but you know, I still like to put it on parallel on a send. I'd create a chain so that I can EQ what I want to make wide, and it doesn't affect my mid signal unless it's too loud. Okay, so that was the space control. Let's have a listen to Ozone 11. Now that is like making it not as mono, but not as wide as what Ozone usually does. So I'm assuming that, you know, that stereoize works upon the stereo information that's in the sound already. A lot of the time you can slap Ozone on something, it makes sound really wide, but on this sound it doesn't. And every sound's different. So, you know, I will always go for reverb first. You know, space control was the best here. Let's turn down the mix a little bit. See, it is taken away from the lead sound punch, and I don't really. I would probably choose not to have that because I like the attack of the sound, and you've got to be very mindful that, you know, specifically in dance music, you know, the punch and the energy comes from the center. You know, the kick, the sub, the clap, you know, the vocal sometimes, or the lead sounds and an open hat. They're the driving force of the track. So they're the things that if I go to mono, I don't want to lose them. But also if I make something stereo, I don't want to lose the dynamics and the punch of it, which is what this is doing. And again, in a way that by turning up the volume of the sides, you turn down the volume of the center, because your ears, you know, that sounds louder, so that automatically sounds lower. It's like an EQ. If you boost the top end, the bottom frequencies are perceived to be lower. So, yeah, good morning, Marcus from San Francisco. So, yeah, so with stereo width, you've got to be very, very careful, right? Number one, you're not destroying the center. Number two, phasing. And number three, that when you collapse it to mono, you don't lose the sound. And some people will go, you don't need to worry about that nowadays. But I disagree. And I disagree because there's still mono sound systems in places, because bars and restaurants, some clubs still have mono systems. And the punch is in the center. 100%. You know, there's an argument really, and I will always try and balance a mix in mono. So I'll always check my mix in mono, and if I feel that in mono it's lacking a bit of energy, then it's going to lack energy in the club. And I'll guarantee you, if everything punches, the key elements punch in the center, you know, when it goes to a club, it's going to hit harder. We all like it wide. We do like it wide, but at what expense? You know, every effect has a side effect. And this is the thing about stereo width. So let's have a listen to those variations and see which sounds best. You know, you've also got things like chorus, microshift. Obviously, they really do affect the center. They make it sound really wide, but I've lost the center. Microshift. Similar kind of effect. And then here's something else I use quite a bit. But again, in parallel, all these in parallel. Again, the time-based effects, and you can kind of shorten the delay on that, and just to make it sound wider, a bit like the Has effect. But with something like the Eventide, you can change the pitch of the double and make it sound thicker and wider, and everything else. So yeah, any questions, guys and girls? Let's have a listen to the different sounds and how they sound different. Remember, this sound, right, because things sound a certain way on this sound, well, it's not necessarily that they're going to sound like this on every other sound. I will try, always, I will try mid-side EQ, first of all, or saturation or compression. I'll add a reverb and see what that does to the width, and obviously in this case it sounded great. I'll then go to something like Ozone Imager, Space Control, or Leapwing, and I'll try them in parallel to see if that sounds better, and it generally does, because it doesn't affect the center sound, the original signal. And then I'll see what's best, but see how they sound in the track. And Ozone Imager is great, but I find that a lot of the time it destroys the center, but sometimes it sounds great on the send, or in parallel. Space Control and Leapwing are just both, I think they work like in a psychoacoustic way, where they create side information based upon what you've already got there, and they sound different on each different sound. And don't forget that some stereo files will have a lot of side information, and some, like this sound here, will have not a lot of side information. And this one I've put to mono, so there is none at all. And again, that's affecting the phase. But again, all that matters here is how it sounds in the mix. And these kind of things I will do after I've got everything in the track. And the key here is, if you can, is finding a great sound that sounds good in stereo first of all. So for example, a great example of this is like not this sound here, because I just like that sound. I love that sound, and it works great in a tech house track. Like with a piano, you know, you can go through the pianos or the synth sounds on any of the synths and go through them, and they sound great because they sound wide. Serum's terrible for this, right? And then you press the mono button and they just disappear and sound terrible, right? And that's because of the effects in the plugin, okay? But like, especially when it comes to pianos, I'll try and find a high quality sample that hasn't been really stereo spread. So sometimes, like in the M1 plugin, some samples sound great. You monoize them, they sound terrible. Yeah, some pianos sound quite good. Some pianos sound great, and that's why I won't go for the first one straight away. And also with layering pianos, you've got to be mindful of the phasing problems that you've got with it. I'll always try and find one sound as opposed to layering it that sounds great. And I've got quite a few pianos. I've got the M1, I've got the Arturia, I've got Keyscape by Spectrasonics. I've got a classic piano one by Ivory. And then I've got the F9 pianos, and his samples are fantastic and really, really good. So finding the right sound is the most important thing that you can do. Hi, Soren. Do you know something? Soren? I think Ozone can sound good. And like I said, I don't know if you've been on for a while, try using it in parallel. Okay, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get a piano up. So insert MIDI track. Let's get the M1 up. Classic house piano. Let's just get a quick riff up. Let's see how that sounds. So get a piano, program, browser, piano 16. Okay, so let's have a listen to that. Okay, so if you're talking about piano Soren, let's just look at the piano, right? This is going to be our lead sound, so we'll start with it. The question you've got to ask yourself, right, is that a great sound? Well, it's a classic sound, and that's what we're looking for, right? Does it need a supporting sound? Well, it sounds a bit thin. It might need a bit more body, okay? So instead of adding another piano, what about if I add the octave down on the G? Try the third. Not maybe turn them ones down a little bit. Always start with the sound. Try and get the best out of the sound that you've got originally. Go back to the sound and go, right, okay, what is the problem with this piano? Well, first of all, it didn't have enough body. So I've added the extra notes. That's what I would do first of all. And I go, I like it. Okay, right. So let's just say I like that piano. The next thing I would do is first of all turn off the effects, because I probably wouldn't use them on here. Okay. Okay, and then what I would do, I would bring up Mentorship KB and I would listen to it in mono. Okay, so great. So that it sounds the same in mono, right? Let's listen to the sides. Okay, so that it is a mono piano. There's no side information on that. Okay, but I might try and look for a different piano. So let's just try and find one that might be a bit wider. And again, it's a mono piano. So there is no side information in that, which is weird, really. Let's have a look at another piano. Let's go to the multi. Let's see if there's something a bit wider in the multis. Okay, I like that. It sounds wide. Let's have a look at it. So I'll take off the effects to see how the sound sounds without the effects. And again, it's kind of, there must be all mono pianos these, which is a bit weird. Let me find one that's got a couple of pianos in it. Multi. Right, I'm going to go back to the 16s. And I'm going to take off the effects because they're not great then. Okay, so how can we make that wide? So first of all, there is no side information in there. So if we get a Pro Q4 and we try and boost the sides by going like this, stereo placement, sides, it's not going to do anything. So then I might try and add a bit of reverb to it. Let's get a Valhalla on there. How does that sound? That's making it sound wider, but it's not like kind of a really wide piano. So this is where we start going, right, okay, I know chorus isn't going to work on it. Let's try something like a imager. So the ozone imager. This is what I see people do all the time. So they get it and they go ozone imager and they stick it on, they go. And then they turn it down because it's too loud, okay? And then it's the right volume and it's nice and wide, okay? Let's just take off the reverb and listen to that. But can you hear it's taken away from the punch in the middle? So I don't like it. I don't like how people do that. When people say, I want my track to slam, it's because they've stuck a big, you know, stereo imager all over it, and that's taken away from the punch of the center of the track. Okay, then I might go to one of the other plugins. So for example, Space Control. Let's try that. Now that sounds great. That sounds really good. You know, it's a different sound to the ozone. But again, the ozone is in parallel because this is a dry wet mix. This is in parallel. Okay. And that's really making it sound wide. But what's it doing to the center? I think that sounds great. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, just let you know, everyone, if you look at this now and I click on this, it's 240 samples, the latency on it, whereas ozone is 0 samples. But let's have a listen to what it sounds like when you go to mono. Space control's fine, okay? Let's have a listen to ozone. In this case, it sounds okay. But what I might do is try them in parallel. So it's like using a send. If you're a Logic user or Cubase, something else, it's like using a send. So I'm going to create a group, and in there I'm going to create a chain. So this is the dry signal, the original signal, and this is the wet signal. Okay. And that just means I'm keeping the integrity of the original sound. Okay, so let's listen to ozone, not on the send. Yeah, I forgot to take the mono off there. So let's create a group again. Group R. Create chain dry. And then let's turn it up. So that sounds wide, but it doesn't feel like it's affecting the center. Now, the more I turn it up, listen to the transients. Because of turning the sides up, we're going to lose the punch of the center. And it feels like you're losing the body. So what I would do is I put that there, but because it's on a send, that means that I can then EQ it. So just listen to the wet signal. I actually prefer it without the EQ. And just do it to see which sounds better. And to me now, that sounds quite wide. Now let's listen in mono. We've still got all that punch in the center, and that's why I always do, you know, stereo imaging in parallel where I think it's important. Now there are some sounds that, you know, when I go to mono, they can disappear, but they're like incidental sounds. They're not kind of key lead sounds. The energy from a dance track comes from the center, you know. And I've made really wide tracks before, and I've done it, and I've played them on stereo systems, and they've just not had the punch. And I've also, 15, 20 years ago, I made a track. It was amazing, and made it dead wide. And I guess I was using like Ozone 1 or something like that. It was a piano track, and I went to the club, and I thought, my God, this sounds amazing. Put it in the car, sounded amazing. Played it in the club, and it sounded awful. And the reason why it sounded awful is because it was a mono system. So yeah, so that's how I would do it with that piano. But really what I would do is this. I would try and find a better piano. So I might try that, and then I'll just go through my pianos and find something that might be a better quality piano. So for example, Keyscape. Let's just say that was the sound. There's not enough bottom end in it, and it needs a bit of tweaking. But let's have a listen to what that sounds like in mono. That still sounds great in mono. It doesn't feel like it's dropping in energy loads. That's a good quality sample that you might want to use, you know. And with that, that's when you could go, right, okay, with that sample, if I want to make it wider, which you don't really need to, that's when you could go, right, well, we've got some side information. Let's have a listen to the side information first. Try a bit of an EQ, or you could possibly try a bit of saturation, to be quite honest with you. Might be better. And again, I've got the saturation there, it's on the sides. I can EQ it, I could put that in a group, EQ it, take the bottom end out of it, and just bring out the frequencies that make that piano sound wider. It's not necessarily the top frequencies. Like, as you saw, I did a quick search there, and around 300 made this piano sound wider. So that's what I do for stereo width. But again, I would probably put this in parallel, but it is parallel actually. Any questions, anybody? Yeah, Space Control's really good. Dyne 1's really good. You know something? Do you know what plugin I've also got recently? And I'm just going to try this actually. I've not tried it. It's a bass plugin, but it might sound good. It goes up to those frequencies. And again, this psychoacoustically creates stereo signals. It makes it sound wider by psychoacoustics, by taking from what's in the center, if I'm correct. So what you need to do is sounds wider, it's louder. Okay, so let's listen to the mono signal. Let's listen to it in mono now. Let's listen to the mono signal. It sounds like the original. Let's listen to it before. After. Again, it's just making it sound a bit wider. This is a bass plugin, but I just thought I'd listen to it and see what it did on this piano. Because I know that what this is creating on the sides isn't affecting the mid-range or the original sound too much. So yeah. Yes, automated mono stereo is also good. But let's go back to the track. Okay, and in this case on the keyscape, the sound control sounded better. The reverb's obviously going to make it sound louder. Let's go back to the originals here. So this is the original sound we used with nothing. Then we added reverb. It could be a bit louder. And then we did the Hass effect. Sounds really good. Obviously the reverb's a bit loud. But that sounds good. And when I say good, I mean the integrity of the sound in the middle and the punch of it isn't moving away. And that was the Hass effect in parallel. We had the widening, the left and right didn't sound great. That's when we doubled it and pan one left, pan one right. Sounds phasey as hell. And then we've got this. Which one was this now? With space control. So in this instance, the Hass effect in parallel with reverb was the best option. On the piano, space control with a bit of reverb was the best option. It's always different. I will always try things in this order. But the key is finding the right sound first of all. That's the key to everything. I don't want two pianos, I want one piano. So what I did was I just got the notes and changed them. Again, this is a different piano. I'm going to have to change the notes that are in the actual MIDI. Everything comes from the source, right? So choosing a great piano, spending a bit more time looking through presets is the key to it. Now, let me have a quick look here because F9 do some good pianos. Oh no, it's a single note. I think they're the single notes, but I think they've got them as here we go. Again, that's a mono piano. Surprised, actually, I've never really checked that a lot. Well, yeah, that's what I do for stereo width. Any questions? You can ask me anything about anything. Please, if you've liked this session, please like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment when it's finished. That would be great for me. I have got my course online. It's adding and adding and adding all the time. We've just started off with the fundamentals, so it might be simple for some people, but a lot of people seem to miss the fundamentals. I'm building up every week, and we're going into more advanced kind of techniques. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed tonight, everybody. I want to get a gig to a club. Where do I start? Well, you know, we could do a whole session on this. Make music, build a community on social media, or go into clubs, or networking. You know, a lot of people have been successful DJs because of the networking. You know, some people are successful DJs because of the social media. Some people are successful DJs because they make great music. My era, you had to make good music, or you're a bit of a legend of a DJ and a networker. Nowadays, social media can do loads for you, but getting tracks signed to the right labels is a big thing. I do other genres, so I do house, tech house, melodic techno, and garage and stuff like that. But I don't really do hard techno or hypnotic techno. I do a bit of raw kind of techno stuff, but I would pass you on to Redosa. But a mix is a mix, you know. And Redosa's a mate of mine, and he does it as well. So I pass techno people on to him. Okay, guys, thanks for joining. Please like, share, subscribe. If you're interested in the one-to-one mentorship with me, just DM me on social media at Jason Hurd Music. And I hope you enjoyed it. Please, if you think there's any other ways of doing what I've done today about making things wider, you please join in. We're all here to learn. Streaming I'm going to do every Tuesday, but if you sign up here at www.subtonemusicacademy.com, if you sign up here for the free taster plan, what will happen is I send an email out before I do it, but I'm going to do every Tuesday at 6 p.m. Greenwich time, which is UK time. And then we usually do about an hour. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do them off the cuff. The problem I've got is that a lot of my clients are in America, and some of my clients finish work. So I work a lot of nights, so it's really hard for me to stream at this time. But I am going to do Tuesdays. So yeah, thanks for joining me. And you know, drop me a message if you want to jump on a 15-minute free Zoom call to discuss whether this course might be for you, the one-to-one mentorship. Hit me up.